You might not be an A, but you are a B+. Solid B+.
Welcome back to the Solid B Plus podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Joe Archidiacono. Don't want to make this intro too long because I got a lot of stuff coming up for you tonight. So just want to get into some quick plugs. Check me out on Twitter, Joe Archie, JoeArchy. Check out my website, delcoodrop.blogspot.com. Send me an email. I got a new email address at the Gmail. solidbpluspodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word, no dashes, underscores, periods, anything like that. We got NXT, Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor from July 1st coming up. Some New Japan stuff, a little bit of indie stuff, as well as a lot of PWG stuff. And like I said, it's a lot to get to. Don't want to waste any more time, so let's just get right into NXT. Alright guys, I'm going to start off the show like we always do with NXT. Let's get into it to the July 1st episode, which opened with a team we hadn't seen in a while. The Vaudevillains made their return to the TV show, which I can't even remember the last time we saw the Vaudevillains, and I don't feel like looking it up. They beat Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder, who used to be the Mechanics, but now apparently are just Dash and Dawson. I really don't know what WWE has against people having two names, but whatever. It was a good match. Commentary tried to talk up Dash and Dawson, but it was just really short, and they didn't have a chance to get much in, and then they lost pretty quickly. It was good to see the Vaudevillains back on the scene and getting into the tag team title picture, which I'll get to in a little bit, but the crowd really kind of seemed indifferent towards the Vaudevillains, and I hope that's just chalked up to the fact that they haven't been around in a while, but maybe, they've kind of cooled on them since it's been so long since they've seen the Vaudevillains, and I don't know, I kind of feel like NXT might have missed the boat on putting over the Vaudevillains when they were really hot the first time around, and trying to force them into being heels. I mean, they have villain in their name, so they're heels. That's what I'm going on. And trying to force them into this role of being heels, the crowd wants to like them. Just let them like them. I don't know. I don't know why WWE has to force guys to be in a certain role when the crowd wants to react to them a certain way, but whatever. I'm not the booker. Next is a short little segment. Apparently Becky Lynch has been injured since the last TakeOver event, which is why we haven't seen her around in a long time. A hip flexor or something, I think she said. Hopefully she'll be back soon because she's been one of the better parts. Well, she and the rest of the women's division in NXT have been one of the better parts of the show. And I don't know, maybe this is why Sasha hasn't been around in a while either, because they were kind of in a program together and kind of starting, well, they'd been feuding and kind of starting like a really top of the card women's feud. And the sooner she's back, the better. Let's just put it that way. After that, Baron Corbin squashed some new jobber, a jobber we haven't seen before, someone named Tucker Knight. I don't know who this guy is. I've never seen him before. He looks a lot like Bull Dempsey. And I remember reading dirt sheet spoilers a while back where people were saying that it was Bull Dempsey, that they were trying to repackage him. And then people were like, no, you're all idiots. This is a totally different guy. He's just another big kind of fat guy with long hair and a beard. So I guess anybody with a little bit more weight and a beard and long hair is Bull Dempsey to people on the internet. I don't really understand what they're doing with Baron Corbin. they're making him look strong by squashing all these jobbers, but they're not really letting him get any experience working longer matches. They're not really letting him look impressive outside of winning matches quickly, and they're not letting him put together longer matches. I mean, he had that program with Bull Dempsey that really went nowhere, and then he had that program with Rhino where he went over Rhino, but like he hasn't amounted to anything otherwise. I don't know, maybe they just aren't impressed with his progress and they're not confident that he can carry a bigger feud or carry a spot at the top of NXT. But whatever it is, I hope they either figure it out soon or, just get him off of TV for a while, because putting him over endless jobbers it's not doing anything for him. And I mean, maybe they're trying to get the crowd to turn on him, because they seem to really be, at first people were really into Baron Corbin. They really liked his jobber squashing thing, and now it's not this, people are just not reacting to it like they used to. Next, William Regal told the Vaudevillains and Enzo and Cass that next week they'll be having a match for the #1 contendership to the tag team titles, which should be a pretty good match. Hopefully, the Vaudevillains will get a little bit more time next week with Enzo and Cass than they did this week. But regardless, it should be a good match because they're both pretty good teams. I foresee the Vaudevillains winning, and not just because I have them in Ring Rust Radio Fantasy, but just because Enzo and Cass had a shot at the tag titles at Unstoppable, and putting them back into the title picture just like that fast wouldn't really make any sense unless they were going to win. So putting another team in there, a team that's been to the top before and that's still pretty popular with the fans, is a good idea, especially against Blake and Murphy. And hopefully the Vaudevillains beat Blake and Murphy, because they deserve it, and really anybody but Blake and Murph deserve to have the tag belts at this point. Following that was the third and final part of the Who is Finn Balor little video feature. They also said that I think that whole thing should be on the network. It's about, I think, like a half hour long, maybe, all told, with all three parts put together. And this part was basically just how he's acclimating to the WWE style, which is, more focused on cinematics and imagery and look and, character more than in-ring work. Which, I mean, Devitt knows how to wrestle. He knows how to work in the ring. They didn't have to teach him how to do that stuff. But a lot of the things that, like Jason Albert was talking about, with that Balor had to learn and acclimate to in WWE, it basically amounted it to style over substance, which you could kind of say that for a lot of WWE programming. But there was a lot of cool stuff about Balor's, hopes for the future, and about how he didn't know how it would really go once he came to WWE, and he was kind of nervous about leaving Japan and leaving all his friends there, and he was saying how he didn't know if he'd ever see them again. But now that they're going back to Japan for this big show on the 4th of July, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that he gets to go back there, and hopefully, a lot of Japanese fans come out and really support him now that he's in WWE and not in New Japan anymore. And there was a lot of cool pics of him with, like Japanese superstars, as well as especially Machine Gun, who Devitt and Machine Gun started Bullet Club together. So that's pretty cool that they were acknowledging that without actually acknowledging it with words, really. After the final part of Who is Finn Balor, there was a small little segment with William Regal, and it was Sarah Del Rey, apparently, and she looked a lot different from what I remember Sarah Del Rey looking like. I don't know if it's just like the way they had her made up for WWE TV or what, but like I was looking at her, I was looking at this lady that was standing with William Regal, and I was like, is that Sarah Del Rey? I assume it's probably Sarah Del Rey. It just doesn't look like her. And then somebody on the announce team mentioned that it was Sarah Amato watching Eva Marie and someone else work in the ring, and they were kind of like gauging her progress and seeing how she was coming along in the ring. And so I guess that's what Regal meant last week about she'd have to prove herself before she could get a match in NXT. And so I guess, this was all just amounting to Eva Marie getting a match eventually, though they never said who or when it was going to be. After that, Evil Emma defeated Carmella with the Emma Lock. And I really think that Emma and Dana Brooke are working pretty well together. I mean, Emma's really good in the ring, and she never really found a character that worked. I mean, people really liked the awkward, kind of like weird dancing Emma that she did in NXT before she went up to the main roster before. And I think that Dana Brooke's like X-Pac heat is really helping Emma get over as a heel, since I think people really want to like Emma, but like just because she's associated with Dana Brooke, they just automatically hate her because Dana Brooke is just like the opposite of what people want to like in NXT and in WWE. It was a short match, and Carmella, she was actually looking better than she has looked in the ring before. We still haven't had the opportunity to see much of what she can do, so maybe if they give her a longer program, maybe like a longer match with Emma in the future, or with Dana Brooke in the future, it could be pretty good, but at least the fans are starting to seem to turn a corner a little bit with Carmella, because when she was first in, she was trying to be a heel. Well, she was trying to be a face, but she was doing a really good job of being a heel, which is the opposite of what you're supposed to do. And obviously, her association with Enzo and Cass has really helped her image in NXT, and it's good to see that she's finally starting to learn how to connect with the crowd on a good level instead of being just shrill and annoying and getting them to hate you instantly like she was doing when she first showed up. And then after that segment, Bull Dempsey was getting into a fight with a vending machine, and William Regal is very disappointed in him. And not just disappointed, but basically tells Bull that if Regal has to speak to him again, something bad is going to happen. I don't know whether he's going to be fired or punished, or if Regal is going to start like taking control of Bull Dempsey like morning, noon, and night, and basically like sending him through a boot camp to get him in, to like whip him into shape. I don't know. I mean, I'm really enjoying Bull's shenanigans lately. I don't know where it's all leading, but I mean, he hasn't been working any matches lately, and he hasn't been doing anything with any other wrestlers. He's just been being a fat slob all over the place, which it's not a great gimmick. It's funny, but Bull's gonna have to turn this into some kind of a feud with somebody eventually. It seems like Jason Jordan might actually be coming around to Chad Gable. He still definitely doesn't like Chad Gable, but I think Gable's persistence is starting to wear him down a little bit. Jordan was upset about losing last week, and Gable was saying that he's been studying his matches, and Jordan was kind of a little creeped out the fact that he's been watching all of his matches, but Gable tells him that Enzo and Cass made him look like a loser last week, and he wants to help Jordan prove that he's not a loser, and that kind of seemed to really resonate with Jordan a little bit. It seemed like Jordan is tired of losing, and nobody else has been able to help Jordan turn things around, and so maybe Chad Gable will. Who knows? The answer is yes, that's definitely going to happen, but, as far as storytelling goes, who knows? After that, Tyler Breeze beat Ty Dillinger in a short match. Dillinger isn't working the perfect 10 gimmick on TV yet, but I mean, the crowd knows about it. He's been doing it at live shows, and it's been getting over really well at live shows, so I don't know why they haven't had him start working it on TV yet. I mean, and this is a pretty good match. Dillinger was really taking it to him for a while, and then Breeze won with a beauty shot out of nowhere, which seems to be his MO lately. I could really see these two guys feuding in the future, especially once Dillinger starts doing the perfect 10 gimmick more regularly, on the grounds of he's resentful of Tyler Breeze and of the fact that he's a male model, and he starts sabotaging his NXT career and his modeling career and stuff. I mean, both of these guys could easily feud with Bull Dempsey, like I was saying before, but a feud between the two of them would be pretty good too. Especially if you wanted to turn Tyler Breeze face, because people like him and people react well to him, but he's definitely been acting like a heel. And I think that a gimmick with like Ty Dillinger's would really help be like the opposite of what Tyler Breeze has been doing. But after that match, Evil Emma and Dana Brooke basically challenged Sasha Banks to a tag team match, but Sasha Banks has to find a tag partner first. They were in the locker room, and Emma and Dana were admiring the NXT Women's title. and Sasha comes in because she was supposed to have a short interview with Devin or something. Dana and Emma tell her that they're coming after the women's title. I don't know how they're both going to be coming after it at the same time, but regardless, moving on. It seems like those two are making a lot of enemies in NXT right now. They've called out Charlotte. They've been messing with Bayley. They've been messing with Carmella. And now they're getting in the head. And now they're confronting the NXT Women's Champ. So NXT is definitely pushing these two pretty hard. Well, not pushing them pretty hard, but at least getting them involved with pretty much every relevant female wrestler down there right now. Sasha says she'll take both of them on. And Emma and Dana accept, but Sasha's going to have to find a partner since there's two of them and only one of her. And point out the fact that who would want to team with Sasha Banks? Nobody likes her right now. But Sasha walks off and says she'll find someone. I don't know who it's going to be because, like they were saying, nobody really likes Sasha Banks either. She's kind of alienated everyone else on the roster, calling herself the boss and acting like every other female wrestler in NXT is beneath her. I don't know, Blue Pants maybe one of the up and coming, like new girls in NXT. It should be Bayley. I would imagine it would be Bayley since she's had problems with Emma, but I think her hand is broken or something, so I don't really know if she's able to do anything in the ring right now. Maybe they're just gonna wait until she's okay to go, but if I had to guess, Sasha's probably going to recruit Bayley to be her partner, regardless of, the fact that they don't like each other. And in the main event, Finn Balor teamed up with Samoa Joe to take on Kevin Owens and Rhino. And in a surprising turn, Finn Balor pinned Kevin Owens at the end of the match. Kinda doesn't make any sense to me at all, considering that the show from Japan where there's an NXT title match between Balor and Owens is happening this Saturday. When I heard that this was going to be the main event of the show, I was like, oh, that means Rhino's going to be taking the pin because you don't want to make Joe look weak. You don't want to make Balor look weak since he's the number one contender. And you don't want to make Owens look weak since he's the champion. And because he and Balor have a match in just a few days for the championship. But then you have the champion lose right before it. I mean, I don't know if they're just trying to swerve people a little bit because it was so obvious that Finn Balor was most likely going to win the belt in Japan and that people kind of are smart to the way the WWE books that usually if you win a big match, you're not going to win the next big match. And so they're trying to reverse psychology you into thinking that because Balor won this match, he's not going to win in Japan. I don't know. I question the logic of having Owens lose that match like that. I mean, you could say it was because Rhino accidentally gored Owens at the end of the match, which was what allowed Balor to hit his finisher and then ultimately pin Owens, but it just really didn't make a lot of sense to me. During the match, it was a solid match overall. It was really solid. They started playing up a little bit of dissension between Joe and Finn Balor. And it wasn't a whole lot. It was just one real small instance where Balor was trying to do the coup de grace on. It was I can't remember if it was Rhino or Owens, but Joe picked him up and then set up for his finisher instead. And Balor was well, what the fuck, dude? Oh yeah, and the other issue I had with this match was Balor is the number one contender going into the show in Japan, right? Well, why are you having him get beat down the whole time and have Joe be the hot tag for Finn Balor? It's shouldn't you be making Finn Balor look strong going into this? Are they really just trying to swerve everybody that hard? I don't know. I mean, it was a good match. I didn't understand a lot of the booking, and I didn't really understand the finish to it is all. But regardless, I definitely see Finn Balor winning the title in Japan especially now that Kevin Owens is on the main roster, and really, it helps him to have the NXT title. It helps him to have a belt around his waist or around his shoulder, because I don't think it would fit around his waist, but it really helps him to have a belt on the main roster, being such a new guy up on the main roster. But he's on the main roster now. He's not in NXT anymore, really. So he doesn't need that title anymore. I don't know. it was just strangely booked, and a lot of the decisions in it didn't make sense to me. But I got over it quickly because then I got to watch my favorite show of the week, Lucha Underground. Oh yeah, don't you just love that sound? That sound means it's time for Lucha Underground. On Lucha Underground this week, it opened with Chavo Guerrero talking to Dario Cueto in his office. Cueto owes him one more favor, and he's calling in that favor and wants a title match this week, this episode, against Prince Puma. And not just a regular title match, but a no DQ match. And one more thing, if Conan interferes, Prince Puma loses the title immediately, even though it's a no DQ match. I mean, they're really, really pushing Chavo as just being the worst person ever, and it's pretty awesome. In the first match of the night, Tejano pinned Daivari with a powerbomb. It was a solid match, even though it's kind of weird that Tejano is all of a sudden a good guy. They're trying to talk him up as a blue-collar, working-class good guy against the rich snob Daivari, which, I mean, I guess it works. It's just kind of weird that all of a sudden Tejano is a good guy after he was, after he hated Alberto Del Rio, Alberto El Patron so much. Old habits die hard. Rick is still Daivari's enforcer, his heater, if you will. And, I mean, he's really taken a step down from being, like, a main event player like he used to be, which is kind of weird. There was, like, that 1 week, I think, where he was a good guy, basically, when he was, like, helping out Sexy Star against the rest of the crew. I don't know what they have in store for Rick, if he's going to, like, turn on Daivari eventually, or maybe Daivari's going to turn on him for not doing a good job protecting him, because he was trying to cheat and help Daivari win, but then he messed it all up, and then Daivari ended up losing. Then in the back, Katrina threatened Prince Puma and Conan about Ultima Lucha, saying that if Puma ends up winning tonight, if Puma survives tonight, Mill is going to destroy him. I'm really looking forward to this match at Lucha Underground, at Ultima Lucha, I should say, not just Lucha Underground, at Ultima Lucha, because Mill has been doing really, really well. He's looking like an unstoppable monster, and even though Puma always finds a way to overcome the odds, I don't think that he's going to be able to be the one who stops Mil Muertes. But then right after that, Conan was off on his own in the locker room, and he was talking to somebody, but we couldn't see who it was. And he was saying that later on, he wants this person to go ahead and act as Mexico and deliver on their promise to Chavo Guerrero. And I wasn't sure at all who this was going to be. And then I was kind of surprised to see who it actually was. The next match, Drago defeated Hernandez, but it was by DQ because leading up to the end of this match, it was a pretty good back and forth, and it was a really good like power versus speed match because Hernandez just has so much height and size on Drago. He was just throwing him around with ease, but Drago was staying into it, using a lot of high flying and a lot of crazy flips and stuff. But then Hernandez like accosts this fan, takes his belt off, and starts just like whipping the hell out of Drago. And at one point during the like before this actually happened, Stryker said something to the effect that like Dario Cueto has told all the refs to with this close to Ultima Lucha, just let things go, just let the guys fight. And Hernandez was just really going to town on Drago for a while, just whipping the shit out of him. And then, and he wasn't getting DQ'd for it. And then he picked up Drago and like drug him to the apron and started like choking him over the top rope with this belt. And then eventually the ref just had to call it off and just had to call it a DQ in favor of Drago. And afterwards, Hernandez calls all the fans dumbasses for thinking that Drago is a real dragon. And he showed them that he's just a man who just got his ass whipped. I gotta say that this is definitely not going to be the end of this. I mean, Drago's not just going to let these two beatings go, especially with the fact that like he didn't get any kind of revenge for the beating that Hernandez gave him before his title match last week, which you could argue cost him. Well, it wasn't a title match actually; it was a number one contendership match, And I mean, you could argue that that's what cost Drago. I don't think he was going to beat Mill either way, but I'm sure that's probably, how Drago is reasoning it. After that, Alberto El Patron just destroys Marty the Moth. Marty basically got the jobber entrance and was creeping the hell out of Melissa Santos while she was doing the introductions. But this match was real short, and it was just Alberto hitting a couple of moves and just destroying Marty all over the ring, working his arm real quick, and then slapping on the cross arm breaker for the win. And then right after the match, he got on the mic and said that Mundo woke up something dark inside him after Mundo threw him through Cueto's office window, and it was the biggest and last mistake he's ever gonna make, because at Ultima Lucha these two guys are facing off, and it has the potential to be the match of the night, to steal the show from either of the title matches, because I got to imagine there's going to be a trios match too. It hasn't been announced, but it's probably going to be the Disciples of Death versus Ivelisse, Son of Havoc, and Angelico, in addition to Mil Muertes versus Prince Puma for the Lucha Underground title. But Alberto versus Mundo is definitely going to be really, really good. And in the main event, Prince Puma retained the title against Chavo Guerrero. This match was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be, and during the match, it seemed like Chavo injured his leg somehow. It was like he tore or pulled his hamstring really bad, and it was around that time that the crew got involved and just started beating down Prince Puma with the kendo stick and just started doing like some double team moves to him and stuff. And Konnan, he didn't get involved. He was trying to distract the crew a little bit to give Puma a little bit of a breather, but he still didn't get involved. But then Konnan calls out his help, and it turns out that it's Tejano. He's the one that Konnan was talking to earlier. And I really didn't see that coming. I was trying to think, like, during the episode, like, who could it possibly be? Maybe somebody new that we haven't even seen before. I never even considered that it could be Tejano. And they're really just trying to cement Tejano as, like, a supreme good guy now, which is kind of strange to me, but I'm not against it. So, and after Tejano comes in, makes a save, takes out the crew, he lets Prince Puma hit the 630 and retain the title. And it was a really short match, and I wasn't expecting that at all. I thought Chavo would, stand a lot more of a chance against Prince Puma than he did. I don't know, maybe he actually got hurt, and they just had to like really shorten up the match because of it. I don't know. I mean, he was playing it up like he was like legit hurt, so it's hard to say if it was a work or not, since this is pro wrestling and you gotta take everything with a grain of salt. But as the episode ended, Chavo is in the locker room by himself, and Blue Demon Jr. shows up, and Chavo looks pretty nervous, but then Demon says something along the lines of, like, don't worry, I don't beat up people who are already hurt. But then Chavo, even though he's injured, even though he just got beat in a title match, still can't help but just be a giant asshole and starts getting into Blue Demon's head and says that maybe Mexico has decided that Tejano is their man now, that Blue Demon couldn't get the job done. He starts saying that he's never heard the fans cheer for Blue Demon Jr. like they were cheering for Tejano tonight, and calls Tejano a washed-up has-been who lives in Miami, and that really seemed to piss off Blue Demon, because he starts slamming Chavo around, regardless what he said earlier, he starts slamming Chavo between the lockers and yells at him that he is Mexico. And then Blue Demon storms out, and Chavo, he was cowering at Blue Demon after he was slamming him in the lockers, but once he storms out, he's grinning to himself because he knows he got to him. He knows he got inside Blue Demon's head, and I don't know where this is going, if Blue Demon's going to come back after Chavo. What it looks like to me is that maybe Blue Demon's going to go after Tejano, that maybe he's going to put a little too much stock into what Chavo was saying and what he was trying to get into his head with, and that he is going to go after Tejano for thinking that Mexico, all of Mexico, I guess, turned their backs on him in favor of this newer guy, Tejano. But I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to Ultima Lucha. They've only announced the one match so far. Well, I guess there's two matches. The title match No Muertes and Prince Puma, and then Johnny Mundo versus Alberto El Patron. It's still a month away, though. It's going to be on August 5th. I almost said October. It's going to be on August 5th. And Ring Rust Radio interviewed Vampiro this week, and he really put over Ultima Lucha and said that it's going to be amazing, and he's never heard a crowd react to any show like the crowd did at Ultima Lucha. And if I wasn't really looking forward to it before, I really am now, because it's going to be awesome. And moving on from Lucha Underground, let's get into some Ring of Honor. And with Lucha Underground out of the way, it's time to move on to a little Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor on Destination America on July 1st. I'm pretty sure this was the final round of matches from the War of the Worlds shows they're going to be showing. It opened with The Addiction defeating Okada and Ghetto, and it was a really good match. I saw the whole thing live when I was there at War of the Worlds Night 2, and it was even better live. So if you are planning on getting the DVD, which I don't think they're out, I don't know when they're going to be coming out, but if you can get the DVD or the video on demand, which I'm pretty sure is out, definitely try and check out Night 2. Check out both of the nights of War of the Worlds, because they were really good. Next match was Adam Page defeating Watanabe, and he had the help of Colby Corino, who interfered several times, especially right at the very end, which led to Adam Page hitting his finisher and getting the win. Afterwards, Steve Corino, he looked pretty disappointed about what he saw, and the way that Colby has been acting as a part of the decade. And it's like that thing that parents used to say, that I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed in you. And that's definitely worse than them being mad at you. And in the main event, which this was definitely a must-see match, AJ Styles defeated Adam Cole, and it was just awesome. And this was on the first night of War of the Worlds, which I wasn't at, so I definitely want to pick up the show sometime and see the match in its entirety, because even what I saw on Destination America was really good, so I got to imagine that the whole thing would be even better. And this was Cole's first match back from a shoulder injury, and during the match they were saying it wasn't just a shoulder injury, it was a torn triceps as well as an elbow issue, which they said that he was supposed to be out almost a year, and then he's back in like 5 or 6 months, which is kind of crazy. That's almost like a John Cena turnaround. But I mean, Cole's a young athletic guy, so I'm not too surprised that he was able to come back so quickly. And honestly, he didn't look like he had missed any time at all. He put on such a good match with AJ Styles. I mean, this kid has all the potential in the world to just he could go anywhere and be the biggest star in the company, and Ring of Honor really is really lucky that he's an exclusive wrestler to their roster. And just a little bit more Ring of Honor news. Death Before Dishonor 13 is taking place in Baltimore, Maryland on July 24th on IPPV. The website says it's also on pay-per-view, but I don't think it is. I think it's just iPay-per-view. The card right now is Jay Lethal defends the world title against Roderick Strong. The Addiction defends the tag team titles against War Machine, The Kingdom, and Red Dragon in a 4-corner survival match. I'm not sure if that means it's elimination or what, but either way, it'll be good. ACH takes on Adam Page in a no DQ match. Moose fights Cedric Alexander in a grudge match, and Moose will have Stokely Hathaway in his corner, and Cedric will have Veda, so I gotta imagine they'll get involved somehow. And just announced for this show is the Briscoe Brothers versus RPG Vice. I'm kind of surprised that they're just going right back to having the Briscoes tag together. I mean, they've done it for so long, and they're such a good tag team that it's not like they are going to have any kind of ring rust or anything. It's just kind of strange that Jay Briscoe would lose the world title after having a really good singles run and just be content going back to a tag situation just that fast. I mean, they haven't explained it at all in like any promos or any segments or anything. Maybe they will by the time Death Before Dishonor rolls around, but I don't know. I just think it's kind of odd. Regardless, that match should be really good, and hopefully this is just the beginning of the Briscoes working with New Japan, because I feel like their gimmick, especially like the over the top craziness of Mark and the serious but really good in ring work of Jay they would really get over with the Japanese crowd, especially just because of their look, you know, and not just because of their look, but because of all that other stuff that I just mentioned. And speaking of the Briscoes, they just announced the first match for Field of Honor on August 22nd at MCU Park in Brooklyn. And it's going to be the Briscoes versus another really, really good New Japan tag team, the Time Splitters. I really hope that they announced that Kushida and Okada and Nakamura are going to be in Philly on August 21st. I hope that Shelley's going to be around too, because I'd really like to see a Time Splitters match in person. They haven't announced any matches for that show on the 21st yet, which I'm kind of annoyed about. But I'm really hoping that Alex Shelley comes back, because I used to see him wrestle as a singles guy back in CZW in the mid 2000s in the very same building. So it'd be really cool to see Alex Shelley back in the old ECW arena again. I can't imagine that he'll just be over for that one show in Brooklyn on the 22nd and not be around on the 21st. They haven't announced it yet, though, which kind of makes me a little nervous. I'm just really hoping that he will be back, because I'd really, really like to see it, and I'd really like to see the Time Splitters. And speaking of New Japan stuff, let's just get right on into the New Japan section.
Young Bucks, go home! Please go home! Young Bucks!
And speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling in the Ring of Honor section, New Japan has one of their biggest shows in the year coming up. It's an annual show around this time of the year. This is on July 5th this year. Dominion is what it's called. Lots of really big matches that should really be awesome. The card looks great on paper, and it should be even better on your screen. First match, the Young Bucks defend the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles against Red Dragon and RPG Vice. I feel like I've seen this match a lot of times before, but I also feel like that doesn't matter even a little bit, and I'll watch it many more times because these guys always tear the house down. Next, Bullet Club, Bad Luck Fale, and Yujiro Takahashi take on Tetsuya Naito and Tomoaki Hanma. Just another of the continuation of the New Japan guys versus Bullet Club guys. And I mean, Naito and Hanma are really good. Bad Luck Fale and Takahashi are not that good. So, I mean, it'll probably be an okay match. Not one of the ones you're going to look forward to on this card. After that, Katsuyori Shibata versus Sakuraba. And if I had to guess, this one's probably going to resemble a shoot fight more than a wrestling match. It'll probably be pretty reminiscent of the Suzuki Sakuraba match from Wrestle Kingdom 9, and be more of like a UWFI match than anything else. So it'll be pretty stiff with lots of submissions. On any other card, this next match would be the main event, but it's only the middle of the card considering the other crazy matches going on. I mean, it probably should be like the semi-main event. I don't know if the way it was listed on the internet is how it's going to actually happen on the show, but the next match anyway is Kenny Omega defends the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title against Best of Super Junior winner Kushida, and this could easily be the match of the night. I mean, the main event will probably be match of the night, but this could easily be match of the night. I don't know if these two guys have ever faced each other before, but Kushida is just on a tear lately, and Kenny Omega is easily one of the best in the world, and I see Kushida probably winning this. I mean, I don't think they'd put him over in Best of Super Juniors for nothing. And as much as I want Omega to stay champion, as much as I really like him as champion, I think a face turn is coming up for Omega. I don't know how soon, but that's definitely in the cards. After that, Togi Makabe defends the never openweight title against Tomohiro Ishii. It seems like this is another match that seems like these two guys just are always going at each other, but they're two of the biggest, toughest dudes on the New Japan roster, and it's just one of those feuds that they just, neither is going to back down, and so they're just always going to be going at each other. I gotta say, Makabe will probably win and retain the title, but I mean, Ishii could easily win. And just because I didn't pick this one earlier, I'd say the Young Bucks will probably defend the titles, though RPG Vice have a good shot of winning. It'll probably be the Bucks that walk out of there with the belts. The next match is the Kingdom defending the IWGP Heavyweight titles, tag team titles, against the Bullet Club's Carl Machine Gun Anderson and Doc Gallows. This feud, they could have done a lot more with this feud. It seems to be more centered around Machine Gun's like weird obsession with Maria more than it has been with just the Kingdom trying to prove themselves in New Japan. And I definitely don't like that aspect of it, but New Japan is all about Maria, so Taven and Bennett, they got a lot of shit from people, but they're a really good tag team, and so are Machine Gun and Gallows, and this could easily be a lot more than it is what I think I'm trying to say. The next match, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Toru Yano, which these two, they've had several feuds in the past, but this has been the most recent incarnation has been really, really good. Yano screwed Tanahashi out of, like, I think it was like his first round match in the New Japan Cup several months back. And ever since then, Yano has been like stealing wins from Tanahashi, and it's a really good feud because Tanahashi is like the huge babyface. He's like the John Cena of New Japan, and he's always gonna be the top guy, and he's always gonna like overcome and look strong. But Yano is like, he's really goofy, and he's always uses underhanded tactics, and they're just like polar opposites in terms of the way, in terms of their style, and because of that, they mesh really well together, and it's really fun to see what they do in the ring because their styles are just so different, and the things they do are just so different that it's just really fun. Second to last match listed was Hiroki Goto defending the IWGP Intercontinental title against Shinsuke Nakamura. Goto beat Nakamura for the title at, oh man, I'm blanking at what show it was, but I think this is at least Goto's second run with the IC title. And if they want to establish any kind of legitimacy in Goto with the IC title, they're gonna put him over Nakamura in this. And I'm hoping that because they put him over Nakamura in this, that means that Shinsuke is going to be getting a lot of convincing wins in the G1 coming up, and maybe even getting back into the heavyweight title picture. I hope. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but that's what I hope anyway. And the main event, AJ Styles defending the IWGP heavyweight title against Kazuchika Okada. I mean, the feud between these two guys is just becoming crazy. Prolific barely even does it justice at this point. Like, it's the next Okada Tanahashi in terms of like the top feud in New Japan, and they really mesh well together, and their styles are really, really compatible, and it's going to be really, really good. They put on crazy matches in the G1 last year, and they've had really good matches for the IWGP belt since then, and it's just going to be really awesome. I see Styles probably successfully defending the title, though Okada could definitely come out of it with the title in this one. And speaking of the G1 Climax, it's the next big event for New Japan on their calendar, so I got to imagine that the blocks will probably be announced at Dominion, and if not at Dominion, like very soon after. And I'm almost positive I read somewhere that all of the G1 shows this year will be available on New Japan World. I'm not positive, but it would make sense to show all of the G1 on their network if they have the capability to, because pretty much every single day from the G1 last year was just out of control, awesome. So this year I don't expect any less. And moving on to some indie stuff, because I still don't have a theme song made up for it. I totally blanked on doing that, mainly because I just didn't have any kind of inspiration on what it should be. But just moving on to some indie stuff. Usually I lead off indies with PWG, but I'm going to be getting into that later just because I got a lot of PWG stuff to get through. So I'm going to save that for the end, save the best for last, as they say. And to start off indie stuff, Chikara announced another team for the King of Trios tournament, which is happening September 4th through the 6th, I believe, in Easton, PA. And the teams announced so far are the Bullet Club, AJ Styles and the Young Bucks, Team Lucha Underground, Phoenix, Drago, and Aerostar, Team Fight Club Pro, MK McKinnon, Tyler Bate, and Trent Seven, Team Attack, Mark Andrews, Peter Dunn, and Flash Morgan Webster, and finally, the most recent team announced, the BWO, Blue Meanie, Big Stevie Cool, and Hollywood Nova. I mean, Chikara likes to put together like decent, or not decent, they like to put together like really goofy, off the wall teams for the King of Trios. I remember last year they had the Spirit Squad in there. So seeing the BWO in King of Trios this year was definitely going to be pretty cool, especially since like so far they've been announcing like really serious top tier teams, and then like the BWO is, I can't imagine that they're going to be really setting the world on fire in the tournament, but it's still going to be fun having the BWO in the King of Trios this year. And just a few more things in indie section. If you want to visit my website, there's results from Beyond Wrestling's latest show, Life Sucks and Then You Die, and then there's a few other things in the indie section on there. But what I mainly wanted to get to right now is PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, my favorite company on the face of the planet in the world right now. That was redundant. I don't know exactly what it means. But we're not going to acknowledge it any further and just move on. They announced several big matches for Threemendous 4, which takes place on July 24th. Speedball, Mike Bailey, is going to be facing Chris Hero, and what I got to imagine is going to be an awesome match. Team Threemendous faces the world's cutest tag team, which Candice LeRae, I think, got hurt either like at or right around Mystery Vortex 3, and she had to miss Beyond Wrestling's Life Sucks and Then You Die, so hopefully she'll be better by then, but it's going to be in question whether she's going to be around for Threemendous 4. The next match, one of the other matches they announced, Ricochet versus Akira Tozawa, which that should be really fun. I'm not sure if these guys have ever faced each other before, but I know Tozawa's faced Swan before, who is Rich Swan is Ricochet's tag team partner in PWG as the Inner City Machine Guns. So I mean, they're probably going to be familiar with each other in that way, but I don't know if they've ever faced each other in one-on-one before. And finally, the big match that probably everyone on the internet is looking forward to. The Young Bucks taking on Angelico and Jack Evans. Like right when Threemendous was announced, there was a rumor online that this match was going to be happening, and then Nick Jackson got on Twitter and said, "No, that's not true. We don't work for PWG at the moment." And everyone just assumed that it was correct. I mean, I assumed it was correct. I didn't think too critically about it, and I probably should have, because this match is taking place during the G1 tournament, and, if the Bucks aren't going to be working for New Japan, they probably are going to be making themselves open for PWG, and New Japan doesn't really have any use for the juniors during the annual heavyweight tournament, so, I mean, if I had thought about it in like that, it probably would have, that rumor at first probably would have had a little bit more credence, but I didn't, and I was wrong. And next up, they announced the complete Battle of Los Angeles lineup. I'm just going to go through the whole list, and note where I got up to at the last show and then continue on with the rest of the announcements. The first 10 that I got through last time, that were announced the last time I did my show, was Will Ospreay, Marty Scurll, Timothy Thatcher, Speedball Mike Bailey, Chris Hero, Biff Busick, Mark Andrews, Brian Cage, Ricochet, who's the 2014 winner, and Tommy End. And those 10 names right there are really good. And there's not, for lack of a better term, there's not really like a jobber among them. There's not anybody that you look at and say, oh, that guy's going to lose in the first round. Like, they all could easily win in the first round, and you wouldn't be surprised at all. After that, like, if you thought that there were some surprise names in that first lineup, like, just hold on to your butts because it gets crazy. Trevor Lee was next announced, which, yeah, I mean, Trevor Lee has been a big name in PWG. Of course he's going to be there. After that, Pentagon Jr.? Pentagon Jr.? Are you crazy? Angelico was announced, and Jack Evans was announced, and for some reason, it still just, like, didn't tip me off that there could possibly be more Lucha Underground guys in Battle of Los Angeles or working for PWG, and I don't know why I'd never even thought of it. I mean, they both work in Southern California, so these guys are going to be around. After that, Drew Gulak, then Angelico, Trent, Andrew Everett, Phoenix, Rich Swann, Jack Evans, Drago, Matt Sydal, Aerostar, Zack Sabre Jr., and Drew Galloway. That lineup is absolutely bonkers. Like, there's no weak spots in that lineup at all. Everybody who was announced has a legit chance of winning, and it's going to be insane to try to predict winners to any of the matches, let alone a winner to the overall match, to the overall tournament. I mean, newcomers usually don't get wins in their first few matches in PWG, but with this being a special occasion and with such big names being entered in the Battle of Los Angeles this year, anything could happen. But even as excited as all those Battle of Los Angeles announcements make me, like, the next section, that stuff that I'm going to be talking about in terms of PWG, is just, if you thought that was out of control, just like, it gets crazier. Like, PWG just keeps knocking it out of the park, and they've been doing this for years. Just like, I don't know how they keep getting better, but they do somehow. Like, once you think that PWG, like, it can't get any better, they find a way. Like, I don't know who sold their soul to what devil to get this kind of, like, constant forward motion going in PWG, but it's amazing, and I love this promotion with all of my heart, and I just hope that they can keep up this momentum somehow, because it's mind-boggling. And like I was saying, I usually put the PWG stuff right up front of the indie section just because, you know, I'm biased and it's personally my favorite indie company. But I saved it for the end of the show because there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be talking about right now that dealt with things that happened at Mystery Vortex 3. And if you're trying to go without spoilers, you should probably not listen to the rest of this. I mean, it sounds kind of counterproductive to say, hey, stop listening to my show, but there's going to be a lot of spoilery stuff going on right now. A lot of stuff coming out of Mystery Vortex that happened. And if you don't want it to be spoiled, you should probably just end the show right here. So, you know, thanks for listening. If you are tuning out and you want to avoid the spoilers, check me out on Twitter, Joe Archie, JoeArchy. I started an email address, solidbpluspodcast, all one word, @gmail.com. Check out my website, delcoelbowdrop at blogspot.com. And I think that's kind of all the plugs out of the way. So if you're still with me, just be warned, mega huge spoilers for Mystery Vortex 3 coming up right now. All right, so I'm going to go over the entire results from Mystery Vortex real quick. But the first thing, the biggest headline coming out of Mystery Vortex 3, fucking Mount Rushmore 2.0. I never thought that was going to happen. I never even considered something like that happening. But it did. Roderick Strong, the Young Bucks, and Super Dragon. That's right, Super Dragon's back. If you've been following PWG for a long time, like, you know that Super Dragon is the owner of the company. He was, he was a really big name early on in the company, and then was kind of in and out in the past, like, 6 to 7 years. Well, he hasn't been around in several years. I'd say maybe like 4 to 5 years he hasn't been around. And then before that, he was in sporadically, but it's been a long time since Super Dragon's been around, is basically what I'm trying to say. And when he showed up, it was just a huge shock. Is putting it mildly. So let's get right into some of the results here. PWG continues to be like the underground cool thing to do for celebrities in Los Angeles, and they always seem to draw just like all these huge names that you'd never consider like somebody being at a wrestling show. Like this time, Sofia Vergara from Modern Family was there with her, I think it's her fiance, Joe Manganiello. He was on Raw before. He's in that Magic Mike movie coming up. Like someone like Sofia Vergara, like, would you ever have believed that she would be at an indie show? I never would. First match of the night, Tommaso Ciampa defeated Johnny Gargano. And Gargano keeps getting like crazy heat from the Reseda crowd. I don't know why these guys hate him so much. He's personally one of my favorite wrestlers on the indies. I don't know. I don't get why they hate him so much, but the best thing they can do is just turn him heel hard. They definitely are they keep pushing him like a babyface. I don't understand why people hate him so much, but they might as well just go with it, because they're not going to stop booing him anytime soon. Just like they're never going to stop booing another guy in this next match. World's Cutest Tag Team defeated Monster Mafia. They got their win back over Monster Mafia after they lost the titles to them at DDT 4. And like Gargano, people fucking hate Joey Ryan. I don't get it. I don't know if it's just like total apathy towards the guy since he's been around for so long, and since he kind of does the same things in every match. I mean, I don't think that he does. I mean, I know that that's a complaint that people have about him. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand any other reason why people hate him so much, but like they really love Candice and they really hate Joey Ryan. So I don't know if this tag team has much life left in it now they're not the champs anymore. They need to do something with Joey Ryan and Johnny Gargano in terms of the fans just despising them with like X-Pac heat isn't even like strong enough to describe how much they hate these guys. Maybe not for Gargano, X-Pac heat, but definitely for Joey Ryan. It's X-Pac heat. Biff Busick defeated Timothy Thatcher. I think this was like Biff's second win, so like it seems like he might be getting some momentum, especially with Bola coming up. That's definitely a good thing for him. And like I was saying before, it's Timothy Thatcher's first match in PWG, so he definitely wasn't going to win. But more on Biff later, so keep that in mind. Roderick Strong defended the PWG World title against Mike Speedball Bailey in what people were saying was the match of the night, and I could definitely see that. I mean, Roddy's been having the best year of his entire career, and Speedball is one of like the most popular up-and-coming guys on the indies right now. And I say up-and-coming even though he's been around for like, I think it's 7 or 8 years or something crazy like that. He's only really started to get into the mainstream of the indie consciousness in the past year or so. I mean, he won CZW's Best of the Best. He's been like wrestling all over, and he gets like huge reactions wherever he goes. So, and I mean, it's deserved too. He's really, really talented. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this match, like, almost more than anything else on this whole show. Brian Cage defeated John Silver, and people were saying that there was a lot of comedy in this match, which I could definitely see, because John Silver, he's kind of a shorter guy, but he's got a lot of muscle on him, and he always acts like he's like the strongest dude in the match, but I don't know if there's anybody in the world stronger than Brian Cage, so the size in terms of like height in this match, but the fact that they're both like jacked up is probably gonna make for some pretty funny situations. After that, Zack Sabre Jr. made a surprise appearance and defeated Chris Hero, and it was a surprise appearance because I didn't explain this before, but if you don't know, the Mystery Vortex cards, this being the third one that they've put on, they don't announce any matches before Mystery Vortex. And that's how popular PWG is, that they can sell out a show, charge I think it's like $60 for front row and like $40 for general anymore at PWG shows, and they can sell out with like standing room only tickets without even announcing a single match or a single person on the show. But you get huge surprises like Zack Sabre Jr. showing up out of nowhere and wrestling Chris Hero. I heard that early in the match, Sabre accidentally broke Chris Hero's finger and that it bled a lot and that it was really gross. But Chris Hero, being the absolute boss that he is, toughed it out and still put on a really good match with Sabre. And I saw a picture of it and I can't remember where it was, so I didn't put it on my site, but it was pretty gnarly looking. It's the kind of thing that if it were me, I would have just stopped whatever I was doing and just probably cried for a while and then gone to the hospital. But Hero continued to wrestle and had a great match, so that just shows you just how awesome Chris Hero is. And the main event of the show, the Young Bucks showed up and defeated Andrew Everett and Trevor Lee for the PWG Tag Team titles. And I'm pretty sure it was their first defense for the team that the crowd dubbed Trevorett. And, the Mystery Vortex show is special to both Everett and Lee because they made their debuts at a Mystery Vortex. It might have been, I think it was the second Mystery Vortex that they made their debuts. And I think it was a triple threat match with those two and Cedric Alexander, if I'm not mistaken. But the story here was that they came out, said they didn't have any opponents for the night, so they were just going to wrestle each other. And then the Young Bucks showed up and challenged them to a match. And it was said to be crazy, out of control Young Bucks match. But it was during this match where shit went absolutely insane. Roderick Strong continued to be just an absolute asshole. And they nearly won the titles until Roderick showed up and attacked the tag champs. Similar to how he attacked the tag champs at DDT4 and cost them their titles, he attacked Everett and Lee and cost them the belts against the Young Bucks. And I guess looking back, maybe this was their plan all along. Maybe Roddy was trying to get the belts off of World's Cutest Tag Team, who beat the Bucks to win the belts back at I want to say it was 11. I'm not positive though about that. But the Bucks hit one of them, I don't know who it was, with a Meltzer driver. New ref comes in because before Trevor nearly retained the belts, Nick Jackson pulled out Rick Knox, super kicked him. New ref comes in. Bucks win the belts for the record fourth time. And they showed, there's a video of the aftermath of the show, which basically starts around now, where it starts after the match, I guess. After the match actually ends, which I put onto my website, delcoelbowdrop.blogspot.com. The Bucks kind of look a little unsure of Roddy being out there, but then they all hug, and they're holding up their belts and stuff, and then Candice and Joey run out, and they get taken out by the Bucks and Roddy. Gargano runs out, he gets taken out. Rick Knox comes out, hits both of the Bucks with a chair, and Roddy turns around, and he's like, "What the fuck, dude?" and kicks Rick Knox. Sets up two chairs with another chair across those two, and people were at the show were saying during the main event the lights were flickering a little bit, but no one thought anything of it, and then during this part the lights flickered even more, and then after Roddy sets up the chairs and starts and sets up to put Knox through them with the end of Heartache, lights go out completely. Super Dragon shows up right in Roddy's face. They stare each other down. And then Super Dragon psycho drivers Rick Knox through the chairs. And I've watched it a few times now, and literally every time Super Dragon shows up, I get chills. I don't know why. I know I'm just a huge indie mark, but I've always been a big fan of Super Dragon. Going back to when I say this a lot, going back to when I used to see him in CZW in the mid 2000s, because he's just got this presence to him, and he's just such a badass, and his allure and mystique in terms of PWG is just undeniable. And the fact that he showed up and is aligning himself with Roderick Strong and the Young Bucks is unfathomable. I never thought that I'd see something like that. And so after he puts Knox through the chairs, he opens up his robe to show that he's wearing a Mount Rushmore 2.0 t-shirt, and people are just like, they're just losing their minds. And Dragon picks up Candice LeRae, shows her how to do a real violence party, because she does that a lot, the chop forearm combinations, and then he puts her down with a Psycho Driver. Excalibur leaves the commentary booth shaped like a table, gets in the ring, and he starts going like, what the fuck, man? And he starts getting in Dragon's face and like hitting and like pointing at him with his finger, and Dragon's just like, I really like Dragon because like even though he's got a mask on, he's still like, his body language is still just really expressive, and you can tell exactly like what he's thinking and what he's getting at, just the way he like carries himself. He's so good at it. And he's like leaning against the ropes, and he's like looking away, and he's basically just like, yeah, man, whatever. But before too long, Dragon's had enough of it. He forearms Excalibur, and he just goes down because he's not a wrestler anymore. He's a commentator, you know? And he sets him up for a curb stomp. Young Bucks super kick him in the face, both of them, and then he gets curb stomped. And then Andrew Everett gets a Psycho Driver. Trevor Lee gets a pump handle Psycho Driver. Then Biff Busick comes out looking really pissed and gets in Super Dragon's face, but eats a super kick as Dragon eggs him on. And this was an interesting little showdown because Biff Busick has been calling out Super Dragon on Twitter for months, and like it always just seemed like trying to sound tough, like he was just posturing to try to call out this tough guy from PWG's past that doesn't really wrestle anymore. But now it seems like there's definitely a possibility that there could be a Super Dragon Biff Busick match in the future, which should be pretty awesome if it ever happens. But it definitely didn't happen tonight, because as soon as Biff showed up, he got super kicked down hard. And like all during this, Roddy is sitting on one of the turnbuckles with a pitcher of beer and just like egging on all the other guys and telling them to keep it up. And then Mike Bailey runs in and he kicks Roddy off of the turnbuckle. But as soon as he gets in the ring, super kick. And he starts trying to crawl his way over to Dragon. Dragon smashes him in the face with a pitcher of beer. Then he hits probably my favorite Psycho Driver variation, the Barry White Driver. And then, to add insult to injury, delivers a small package to Trevor Lee. Nick Jackson counts the pin, and they force the person at the table to ring the bell. And it's basically like Mount Rushmore never left. They're just continuing the legacy of Mount Rushmore of just being the biggest dicks in the whole world and just running roughshod over the rest of the roster, basically being like, nobody's better than us and don't even try, because we're gonna not only beat you down but then humiliate you. And to emphasize that fact, amidst all the carnage, all these guys down on the mat, Joey Ryan, Candice LeRae, Rick Knox, Johnny Gargano, Trevor Lee, Andrew Everett, Mike Bailey, Excalibur, the Young Bucks start selling Mount Rushmore 2.0 shirts as all these guys are still down on the mat. And it's like, I can't wait to see this on DVD, and I can't imagine what it was like actually seeing it in person, just because just knowing the history of PWG and the history of Mount Rushmore, and now that it's back with Super Dragon and Roderick Strong as parts of it, it's mind blowing. It's unbelievable. And I wrote this up on my blog, and you can read it there and like fully all my thoughts, but I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but I can almost like see cracks in Mount Rushmore already. For one, like Roderick Strong was addressing the crowd at the very end as the Bucks were like starting to sell shirts. Before he like even started talking, really, Super Dragon just left. He didn't stand tall with the other members of Mount Rushmore, and it's like he was there to kick the shit out of everybody and to look like a badass, but then he just like, he obviously doesn't like care about the team aspect of it, you know. He's not in it to be a part of the group, regardless of the fact that he unveiled the Mount Rushmore shirt to begin with. He left before the world champ even finished talking. And in the first incarnation of Mount Rushmore, Adam Cole was the champ, and he was like the most powerful and influential person in the group. And, you know, everybody kind of rallied around him to make sure he kept his title. Also, like, they helped the Bucks keep their title. And I mean, it worked, and it worked for the first incarnation because Steen was in that Super Dragon role as like the veteran bruiser guy. But Steen was in that role because he realized he couldn't beat Adam Cole on his own, and he took that if you can't beat him, join him approach. But it's not the same with Super Dragon because he's the head of PWG. He's almost like a mythical figure, and nobody, not even the champ, is bigger than Super Dragon in terms of PWG. You know, in 1.0 Mount Rushmore, Steen needed Cole and the Bucks to stay on top because he couldn't overcome Adam Cole because of the Bucks, and when he was just on his own, he couldn't do anything against them. But in 2.0, Dragon doesn't need Roddy or the Bucks. You know, Dragon is bigger than the titles. Dragon is PWG. So there's that little bit of like incohesion. I don't think that's a word, but we're going to go with it. And the second point is the Bucks started selling merch before Roddy had finished speaking, which both of these instances both of these examples are basically just like a little, not disrespect, but just like Roddy is the champ and he should be the most important person in this stable. But it's clear that like Super Dragon just cares about himself because, you know, he's the head of PWG and he is bigger than Mount Rushmore and either of the titles. And the Bucks only care about themselves and their money and their merch. They don't care about keeping Roddy in the championship, and they don't care what Dragon's going to do because Dragon's going to do whatever he wants to do and nobody's going to stop him. And so it's basically already like the troops are like disobeying and not following the leader's lead. And I mean, that's not good for a group's overall stability. Because in terms of PWG, Roddy has always kind of been the bridesmaid, never the bride. I mean, he's been in PWG since 2005. He's been there for a decade. He's held the tag titles numerous times, but all of his partners have gone on to bigger and better things. You know, he tagged with Pac, Adrian Neville, who went on to Dragon Gate, and he's in WWE now. He tagged with Jack Evans, who went on to AAA and become a huge star, and now he's coming back a huge star, arguably bigger than Roddy. And Roddy's only just now, within the past year, starting to put together a resume and a body of work that's world championship caliber, and with his new attitude, been able to capture the world championship. And it was only because he challenged Kyle O'Reilly to a guerrilla warfare match after O'Reilly had already faced Ricochet in a match at, I think it was Black Hole Sun, that Roddy actually was able to win the world title. And in terms of Rushmore 1.0, like, Adam Cole might have been like sneaky and conniving, but he was able to win the title on his own, and he was able to do it very early in his career. You know, like having the Bucks and Steen there was just icing to help him keep that belt. He didn't necessarily need them. And while Roddy has been defending the title, you know, on his own to this point, he's been like really sneaky and really weaselly, despite being a really, really good, competent wrestler. And I gotta think that if he depends on Dragon or the Bucks too much going forward, I can't really see them being willing to stick their necks out for him the way that Steen and the Bucks were for Cole. Like I was saying, I'm just like noticing little cracks, and I might just be reading way too much into it because, I mean, Roddy has been destroying people, and he's been capable of keeping the title all on his own. And the Young Bucks are just unstoppable, and they're the most prolific tag team in PWG history. And Super Dragon, it's fucking Super Dragon. I mean, these guys all put together, if they work together and they're really like concentrated on destroying everybody, they're going to destroy everybody, and nobody is going to stop them. And it's going to be awesome to watch. So that brings me to the end of the show. Thank you for tuning in to the Solid B Plus podcast. I'm your host, Joe Archidiacono. Check me out on Twitter at Joe Archie, JoeArchy. Check out my website, DelcoElbowDrop.blogspot.com. shoot me an email, solidbpluspodcast@gmail.com, all one word. And thanks for listening.